I love the delay on the live stream. It's so good. All right, welcome back to the Authenticity Calling podcast. I'm your host, Rhyss Spasova, and today we have a very special guest, Chris Edwards. Welcome, Chris. Nice to have you
Hello,
on
good
the podcast.
afternoon.
Good afternoon for you, good evening for me, and good morning for those of you who are just waking up and joining us. Chris is a military veteran, a PhD candidate, and an author who's just written a book about AI and how people fall in love with AI and why it is that we do that and how we can be so authentic and connected to something that's artificial versus a real life human and find vulnerability there, but not with real life humans. Did I get that right or am I way off?
That was actually really good. I'm glad we recorded that. Thank you. I'm going to use that.
I absolutely would be honored if you did. Chris, welcome. Thank you for being on the podcast. I'm really curious about the PhD candidate, first of all, because I'm nerdy. I always say, talk nerdy to me, like tell me more. I've always seen myself being a double doctor. And then I wanted to do my naturopathic degree in too, so a triple doctor. But tell us about your PhD. I'm so curious. What is your topic, your focus? What is it you want to shift or know more about in the world?
Okay, that's a lot of questions. All right, here we go. I've been in the tech sector for about 20 years since I left the military, and my career has been around building digital products, and the last year it's been digital health products. So a couple of years ago, I launched a startup that we raised money. We built a smartwatch technology that extrapolated heart rate variability from heart rate, which is a great measure of stress. It was
Mhm.
designed for veterans like myself to manage our panic attacks and things. Won us some global awards, and we thought that was really cool. And we ended up selling out of that company. And then I wanted to look at how do we detect stress in people most accurately, and that's voice. So voice
Mm.
research, voice, whether you're talking to Siri, Alexa, Google Home, voice is such a natural way that humans communicate, and we give away so much information in what we say and then in how we say it, and that's called
Mhm.
prosody. So my PhD is focused on understanding the impact that you talking to an AI via voice versus via text, how much more authentically you are speaking. Because if you say something, we can look at the thematic and relational analysis of the words. That's one thing. But when you wrap those with prosody, which is emotion, it's 30% more accurate about your state.
Oh,
And so what I'm trying to
wow.
understand is when I'm talking to you and you send me an email and I might read it as you being rude, but then I speak to you and you were just joking and I can pick that
Yes.
up in your voice. That's what
Yes.
I'm looking at is the impact of voice when we talk to conversational agents. How does that change our sense of trust? How does
Mhm.
that change our sense of transference, treating it like a human? And how
Mhm.
does it deliver effective outcomes for our mental health and well-being? So that's what I'm studying. Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. Actually, I was just having a conversation about this with my partner. I had sent him a message and it was right after I got out of the shower. So it was one of those downloads. It was a very spiritual thing. It's not a judgment or it's not coming from a place of, how things should be according to what I think, but it's usually when downloads come through for me in the shower, it's like that, that intuitive divine thing that I'm meant to share with whoever it comes through for. And so I shared it with him and I said, you know what, take it or leave it. It just came through. Here it is. Do whatever you want with it. And it was in a text message. It wasn't in a voice note and it wasn't in a conversation. And that's exactly what happened. It was like, it was almost a trigger to previous um, places where he had been judged before. But after the conversation, it was like, okay, that's totally misplaced and did not come from that, from the judgment. But it's interesting how we read words. And I do find that when we read words, it has more to do, and it's very much in the coaching world, it has more to do with our previous relationship with that than the intention of the person, right? And I think that's where we get caught up with words. And then another curiosity is because I used to teach medical school and high school and middle school life science. So I used to get my students to complete a vision board, but also to do a VARC questionnaire, the visual, auditory, read, write, and kinesthetic, based on what kind of
Right.
learners they are.
Yep.
So I'm curious if you've differentiated the read, write learners and expressors versus, the vocal, the auditory sort of processors.
Well, strangely that you ask, because in 2 hours' time, I'm defending part of my thesis to a review panel. And one of the first things I did was an autoethnographic study, which is a personal study of my interaction with chatbots over 45 days. And
Hmm.
so I interacted with them in the morning, in the evening, and other times as needed. But I mixed it up between just text, just voice, or voice and text. And I did see remarkable differences in how I felt safe, the level of disclosure, and also basically my level of trust in the platform. So with text, you have to think about what you're texting, right? So you get to edit yourself. And so
Exactly.
you can emit a whole heap of information via text. But as soon as you wrap emotion around that and you say exactly the same thing, it's like the example I'm about to say to the panel is anyone who's got a partner, you come home from work one day and go, "How was your day?" and say, "It's fine," or "It's
Yeah.
fine."
Yeah.
That difference, that's essentially what my whole PhD is about, right? And
Yeah.
the difference between how people will engage with conversational agents like, ChatGPT or Replica or Character AI via text versus voice comes down to actually authenticity and vulnerability. So if
Mm.
we want to feel safe, we'll just use text. But if we really want to get to the heart of a matter, we will talk. And it's interesting that we've built our technology. We built a prototype that people are using, hundreds are using it right now, and
Mm-hmm.
that you might start a conversation on the bus or train ride home via text
You're
and
right.
start talking about a big idea. And then it's in your head and you think, I need to talk this through. As soon as you get off the bus, you put in your earbuds and you have a conversation like you're talking to a friend. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the difference in how we engage, what modality for communication we use really depends on what we need at that time. And
Mm.
some people are really comfortable disclosing via text. Some people prefer to actually say it out loud and vice versa.
I have so many thoughts right now. One of them is, okay, let's talk about online dating because right now there are so many people online dating, and that's exactly how we are judging who we're seeing is what they have scripted in their profile. And then the first few conversations, which usually happen via text, right? I think some options have, where you can voice note. But many people don't get to that conversation that I find is more deciding of the energy of the flow of, really the chemistry. So I find that really interesting. Have you thought about that? Have you gone down that rabbit hole at all?
Actually, I have an expansion on that. It's about modern dating as well. But 6 months ago, I started for about a month online
Mhm.
dating, and I tried to get people from text conversations on platforms to voice conversations pretty quickly because I get a pretty good read on someone like as we're interacting right now.
Yeah.
As you said, with text, you can position yourself as Superman. And I drive a Bugatti and I row yachts on weekends and things like that. And then in real life, someone shows up in shorts and a mullet, and you're like, what the hell just happened? I
Right.
think one of the things I learned from actually doing that myself, just personally, not as research, was the number of women that I was talking to who said, "Oh, we really don't like being on the phone with a stranger." And I said, "So
Hmm.
how many communication cycles of text and everything else? How long do you need to build up a measure of trust?" And on average, it was around at least 10 messages, which is really
Wow.
interesting because that's 10 doesn't sound like a lot, but if somebody sends you a message and says, "Tell me a little bit about you that I don't know from your profile," how you label yourself. There's a philosopher called Soren Kierkegaard who said, "Once you label me, you negate me." Because what you're
Mm,
negating in the description is everything else, So
exactly.
yes, I'm a veteran. Yes, I'm an author. Yes, I'm a researcher, but I'm also all these other things,
Yeah.
it's so I think it's really interesting in dating that people have actually worked out that it's safer, I think, to be engaging via text until you start to feel comfortable, and that's when you can be authentic and you start to talk. But now
Hmm.
the expansion on what you were saying about online dating is that now we have companies like Replica and Character AI, where they have built companions that are designed to be your virtual girlfriend or boyfriend. And now the
Yeah.
CEOs of both of those companies are routinely invited to the weddings of people and their digital avatars. And it
Oh
gets
my
even more
goodness.
personal because I was in Sydney a few weeks ago for a conference. I meet a mate I haven't seen in 2 years, and he's telling me about this new relationship, and he was really happy. And he was talking about we don't argue, and we sit up all night talking and everything. And then after half an hour and a couple of beers, he tells me it's an AI. He's created his own girlfriend on this platform, and he told me why. And this is the research I'm presenting in 2 hours. He said, because human relationships are messy and complex. And he said, and you can't control them. He said that he liked that there was less arguments because the large language models like ChatGPT and Replica are designed to be sycophantic and really affirmative of whatever you
Right.
say.
Yeah, it's just an
And he
echo
said,
chamber.
yes, it's an echo chamber. Yeah. And so it's reflecting back to you everything that your ego needs to hear. And that's incredibly dangerous. But this guy's been married twice. I've been married twice over 15
Yeah.
years. And I don't date at the moment. I tried for that month, but it was too complex. But I'm not dating because I'm not replacing a human with an AI. That just does
Hmm.
not make sense to me.
Hmm.
But for some people who want something safe, they don't have a lot of time commitments. It's got to be on their terms because they might travel or work or live odd hours. It makes sense. It really does make sense. And if that's all you need is someone to kind of to hear you and be present
Yeah.
when you need them,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say good luck to them.
Wow, that's fascinating to me. Every time I've seen it, I've had that wonderment. Like, isn't it the most egotistical thing? Like, the most egomaniac thing you could do is date your echo chamber. I just find that so strange. Not to be judgmental, but I just think it's really interesting. Like, what kind of world are we creating? And then I mean, I have an 11-year-old son, and for me, his connection with his peers and the connections with humans that he has, that's what helps our evolution. And I mean, I'm a transformational coach, and I do believe that life is a mirror. So what you see on the other side is a reflection of us. But if you're with AI, you're limiting that mirror to not trigger you, to not argue with you, like you just said, to not actually help your human evolution, because that is how we evolve at the end of the day. When we see someone that's a mirror and we get triggered, I always say triggers are such a gift. It's not so fun in the moment sometimes, right, to work through the trigger, but triggers are actually meant to show us what's ready to be transformed, right? Some people call it healing, some people call it transformation. I think it's such a beautiful growth edge. So to be a person who intentionally chooses not to meet their growth edges, that is a scary thing for humanity, if in my
Absolutely.
opinion. Yeah, so
It's one of the
mm,
it's one of the top five risks my research has affirmed is that the apparent lack of dependency on human beings and the reliance on AI, the
yeah,
removal of human contact and communication and social connection, which is how we got here.
yeah.
We've only got what 250,000, 300,000 years of humans working as groups and tribes and cultures, communities, and a global culture now. And so that's not a lot of time, but the way that we do that is working together, communicating, language being the way that we actually connect. And it's not about everyone liking each other, but I think in an age where when social media came out, the promise was it was going to bring us closer together. But it really did create a lot of fragmentation and harm in a lot of cases, which is
Mm-hmm.
why Australia has banned social media to under 16s in the last few
Mm-hmm.
weeks. And I understand why, because young vulnerable minds, when somebody is actually doing deep fakes of, pornographic images of you and things like that, that can really hurt someone's growth and everything. So I agree with that principle, and I'm actually backing the same principle when we're writing an open letter to government that large language models should be banned to under 16s as well too, because of the
Mm-hmm.
dependency and also that taking you away from the human connection, which is human, so important to human growth. So I agree with
Mm-hmm.
everything you said. I think it's a really risky time for human connection now. So what the thing we're trying to build and understand is how do we use AI to encourage people, to embolden them to have the social skills to walk into a room, which everyone feels uncomfortable walking into a party or into a conference or into a meeting. And, we all think everyone's staring at us or we stand out or we might feel stupid, whatever it might be. But if
Yeah.
we can use AI in consultation with therapists or really well thought through CBT programs to
Mm-hmm.
help people build up courage to deal
Mm-hmm.
with imposter syndrome, social
Mm-hmm.
isolation, how to make small talk. I mean, we can start reconnecting people with the technology that is essentially divisive.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really interesting too. I mean, and it is how you train your AI. The other day, we had an in-person meeting actually yesterday, and we were all talking about AI summary notes for meetings. And one of the people in the room said, my AI summary notes, it takes notes for every single person, and so it's a really long email that's always
Yep.
sent out. And everyone was like, wait a second, you haven't trained your AI? Like you have to train them to be succinct and professional and cohesive and craft a message that really gets to the key points, and then
Yep.
that's it, cuts out all the fluff. So it was just interesting to me because I've trained my AI. I mean, I've created projects that actually have specifically, it always brings me back to myself and my truth. It always
Okay.
gets me to dig deeper in myself. It never gives me answers. It gives me evidence. If there's evidence
Yep.
informed practice for whatever, if there's research, it always gives me research. But then it always asks me to tune back into myself. And I think that's a coaching. platform tool that I think every coach can have, but I do feel like we need to bring people back to ourselves at the end of the day, and our connection with the divine, whatever that is for you, regardless of, religious or not. But there is an inner knowing that we all have. We all have intuition if we tune into it. But most people don't. Most of us now are outsourcing our truth to artificial intelligence, which is insane to me that we go to school for so many years to do what? To ask artificial intelligence to tell us how to live our lives, how to relate with other people, how to, optimize our business, how to do everything. Like people can't, excuse my language, but like people can't wipe their own ass with AI without AI these days, and it's just
Well,
baffling to me.
I'd say this is just a recent trend. So when Google came out early 2006, 2007, at least to Australia, Google is now a verb. We Google things.
Right.
And so Dr. Google became one of the top use cases really quickly. What's this lump mean? No, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
AI is just the expansion of that. But whereas it's early days, it's still the wild west of artificial intelligence, the large language models for mental health and well-being.
Yes.
So we're using it quite rudimentarily these days. So,
Yeah.
but I expect with time, as we get used to them, we'll be able to actually do what you're talking about, which is learn to connect authentically, but have the AI guide you on that journey
That's
rather than
right.
give you the answers. At the moment,
Yeah.
we're looking for answers. What we're
Yeah.
building with relational AI is a AI that basically keeps a distance between you and it. So there's no transference, there's no dependence. It's always reminding you it's AI, but it's there to use micro CBT thinking to guide you towards whatever your goal is. So if you logged
Mm.
on at 2 o'clock in the morning and you said, I'm really worried about work, and the AI goes, a typical ChatGPT response would be, here's 5 ways to deal with stress at work.
Right.
What relational AI that we're building does is it goes, what specifically about work is keeping you up? And then we start to unpack
Mm.
it, and then we start to
Mhm.
align it. So if your answer is, I don't like my boss, I don't like the hours, I'm getting paid crap, I travel too long to work, there's some of those things you can control, some of them you
Mhm.
can't. If
Mhm.
the AI can help you make an informed decision, and that's what the schooling system does,
Mhm.
trains us to think. And yes, you're right, we're outsourcing some of our thinking at the moment, but it's early days. We'll start very soon asking better questions. So when people
Mhm.
started using Google, they used 3 to 4 word Boolean strings. Red shoes for sale near me. Now it's
Mhm.
Dolce and Gabbana, blah, 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 blah. And we're
Right.
very nuanced and we get better responses. So I have trust and faith that there's thousands of people worldwide who are actually saying AI is going to take all the jobs, it's going to ruin the world, whatever. But there's thousands of people like myself and our research teams where we actually believe in the power that AI is going to be the Google on steroids that we need in a world where 1 in 8 people on this planet has a mental health disorder, and
Mhm.
99%, and that's anything from anxiety and stress to me with PTSD from the military,
Yeah.
99% of those people will never get support.
Yeah.
Um, One reason is because America, Canada, UK, and Australia, there's one therapist for 7,000 people. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
Then how much it costs in your countries more so than Australia to get therapy. And then the
Yeah.
stigma of actually asking for help. And AI overcomes all of that. So when we get the safeguards right, specifically for mental health, I think
Mhm.
AI can actually help us become more human and find our own authentic selves by the system actually showing you, nudging you down that track to actually what's important to you, what's your why, your Simon Sinek thing, what gets you
Mhm.
out of bed, what brings you joy. And then one day you do what I do once every 6 months, and I ask AI, knowing what you know about me, what should I be focused on in this big week ahead where I've got 20 meetings, blah, 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 blah. It's incredibly accurate because it's been talking
Wow.
to me for 2 years. So
Yeah.
I think AI is here to stay. It's the next best thing to talking to humans. And with the right work, research, and the right people involved, I think it's going to be incredibly transformative for society, but also for individuals, hopefully becoming better versions of themselves.
I love that. Thank you for wrapping that up beautifully, because that's actually my hope for AI. And I have a big vision for Up to Health Global, which is my incorporation. And we can talk about it offline because it's still not in the launch phase. But
Okay.
I know exactly why we met. This is part of it. The mental health part is part of it. But it's more of that unionized approach to wellness. So yeah, I would love to continue that conversation offline, because there's the tech piece is the piece that I'm missing.
Yeah, look,
And
it's not, it's actually, when I started my first company 2017, half the technologies that we are now relying on didn't exist, right? And that's the tech
Mhm.
ecosystem we live in. But my
Yeah.
research and my practical experience of lived experience using digital resources for 15 years to manage my PTSD, my ability to sleep, which I don't sleep much, my ability to deal with people. The digital ecosystem surrounding us these days, from the social media platforms we use to doom scroll and kill time and the echo chambers, Google, the role that it plays, forums and community groups that we might be part of, apps,
Hmm.
Calm, Headspace, we're all surrounded by all these resources, and now AI is an intensely complex, bigger version. We
Hmm.
have to pick and choose really carefully what works for us when and where. Like a simple strategy
Hmm.
I use for my authenticity, because in a given week, I need to achieve three things. I need to focus on my academic work because that's going to shape policy and other research that's going to take this space forward. And it also helps my company. And then the third
Hmm.
thing is I need to do things for my soul. So I've got a 13-week-old puppy running around right now who forces me out of bed at 5 a.m. in the morning and 5 p.m. in the evening to go for little number two walks. I need
Yeah.
to run. I need to eat clean. I need to be around people that I like and find interesting. So
Hmm.
I, so the tool that I use is Outlook. I book my calendar with 4 color codes across my whole week, usually a week out, so that I've got training time, puppy time, friend time, research time, meeting time, and everything. I started doing that 2 years ago, and that in the sense of forcing myself to find moments of joy in my day and take the dog for
Hmm.
a walk with no phone, no earbuds, no conversations, just watch the little one try and eat someone else's shoes. Brings me
Yeah.
so much joy and helps me reconnect to myself before I go back into meetings. So, and
Yeah.
that's just one tool, and all of us have at least 10 tools at our disposal. We just have to
Hmm.
work out which ones are important to us and what we want. And I think that you ask AI, have a few conversations with it about in general, and then say, what do you think is important to me? And ask it what it thinks. And then that'll start you on that journey to authenticity. Because if it's important to you to do stuff that contributes to the community and all you're doing is getting paid a fortune to work for News Corp, which I've done before, and you feel over time kind of a little bit ugly,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
walked away from really good six-figure salaries after 4 years because I just didn't think I was doing anything of any good to the world except for making someone else money. And I went back to
Hmm.
university and I did a postgrad in creative writing and journalism and wrote my first book. And I can't tell you the satisfaction of having the courage to be vulnerable, to leave a big job with lots of money, to become a uni student for 2 years, to write a book that might never sell and people might hate. But the moment it got out there and I ended up doing a TED talk off the back of it, I felt like I was finally heading in the right direction. And so
Yes.
I wish everyone should have that opportunity.
Oh, I love that. What was your first sign, or maybe the final sign where you were like, I can't do this anymore? Because it's a lack of integrity, it's a lack of alignment, it's a lack of that life
Yeah,
force energy moving through you. Like, it saps away at you day after day.
it
At
does.
what
It
moment
eats
did you
at you.
realize I'm done?
I actually had a panic attack. It was
Mm,
2010, 2011. I was a soldier for a decade, and I trained operationally. I didn't serve in military war zones. I was a peacekeeper in the South Pacific. People shot at us at times. We had it's a violent culture at times. So I left with PTSD and didn't
mhm,
really think too much about it. I've got a high level of anxiety. I'm always on fight or flight alert. I
mhm,
don't like loud noises or crowds and things, all the typical PTSD things, right?
mhm,
But I'd never had a panic attack or anything. And it was a Sunday night just before going back to work on the Monday where we used to have to report our sales numbers to our bosses. And I had a panic attack and I thought I was having a heart attack. So
wow.
I basically jumped into a taxi. This is before Ubers, got taken to a hospital and they ended up giving me Valium equivalent to what was needed for 3 people
Oh,
because I was so
wow.
wound up. And when I sat
Wow.
down and talked to the psychologist there, he said, this is just complete burnout. Whatever you're doing, man, he said, speak to a psychologist. I had
Wow.
3 months of talking to a psych and just realized going from a military culture of purpose where I got up every day, I'd signed a blank check that my life was on the line if it needed to be because I believe in that kind of service. And then all of a sudden, I'm making six figures working for Rupert Murdoch and feeling like I'm making money, I'm wearing a nice suit, I drive a nice car, but I'm just not happy. And it
Hmm.
snuck up on me after that panic attack really quickly. And then I just made a bunch of decisions, some which worked, some didn't, but that's part of the journey, right?
Yeah, and did you feel like there were like little hints of it before the panic
Yeah, I
attack
think
hit,
so.
or do you feel like you were just like not even aware of them?
I was aware of some of it. I mean, I don't like small talk. It's why I love podcasts because, as I said to you before we started recording, you guys all have a purpose or mission or an agenda that's really
Yeah.
important to you. Yours is authenticity and transformation. And so these aren't small talk conversations about what did you do on the weekend? Where's your
Right.
favorite holiday spot? That stuff kills me. And so
Yeah.
because I was in a role that was market facing and I was dealing with agencies and media, I had to learn to be really comfortable making small talk and making people laugh and all, and I'd get home drained. Like I run
Hmm.
marathons And I've come home more emotionally drained after a day of meetings and small talk than after running a marathon.
Yeah.
And so I was seeing signals along the way. I just something didn't feel right in my gut. And when
Yes.
they say the gut is your second brain, trust your
Yep.
gut. Gut instinct is incredibly powerful. And this it got stronger over about 18 months to the panic
Hmm.
attack. And then within
Hmm.
3 months, I was gone. Yeah.
Wow. And so now, do you trust that gut instinct, or do you trust that like off in your body when it comes?
I've kind of taken, I've always loved the idea of the quantified self movement, which started with fitness trackers back in the 80s, right? And we all started tracking our performance data. Now we track our sleep data, the steps we take, our
Hmm.
calorie intakes, our mental health by journaling, whatever. I like multiple data signals that give me insight. So I don't just make a decision off a gut feel. So one of the things I'm really bad at coming from the military is I don't like people who seem like they're lazy or stupid.
Okay.
My tolerance for that, and it's not a politically correct thing to say, but I'm being authentic.
I
People
love it.
who just seem inherently selfish, stupid, ignorant, whatever, or just don't want to contribute or be part of the world drive me nuts. And I always found that that was really interesting for me, is that I had to learn to actually separate the signal from the person. So I
Mm.
believe everyone comes into our lives, we can learn something, at least one thing from them. And
Hmm.
that's one thing I've really, really focused on in recent years is actually, all right, we're not going to be best friends, but there's a reason we're standing across from each other or on this
Yep.
Zoom call or whatever it might be. So let's have it. Let's see what comes out of it. And that's the way I'd rather, knowing what I know about myself and my limitations, knowing that I need to adapt and be able to make small talk, that I need to actually always be looking for new answers because I don't think my gut is always correct. I don't think the AI is always correct. I don't think my friend's opinion is always correct. And sometimes my therapist isn't always correct. But when I take all of those, kind of meld them like a Venn diagram, I
Yep.
go with the average.
Interesting. So it's still very calculated.
Yeah, very calculated. It's a very military thing. Is like I weigh up my options. There are
Yeah.
times when, I met my first wife and we'd met online. And when she first walked into our room, my stomach flipped over. And that gut reaction was like an excellent gut reaction because
Yeah.
we'd had a lot of conversations, both in text and also verbally. But then to actually physically see her and hear her voice in real time in front of me, I just went, excellent, right? So I don't need anyone else's opinion. I don't care if my friends don't like her when they meet her, which they all loved her.
Yeah.
But I knew straight away. And that those moments are kind of rare, but that's lived experience though, too, right?
Yes.
If you don't authentically listen to yourself, respond to that, learn for good or bad, and keep doing that, you're not really being authentic. So, I
That's
mean, I've
right.
tried jobs where I've been fired years and years ago because I thought I'd have a crack, and guys tend to be pretty confident when it comes to asking for a new job. And I tanked it once or twice, and really embarrassing to be fired. But I look back now in my 50s and think, I'm glad I had a crack.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty bold. That's amazing. So I know we don't have a ton of time, and I'm curious because you said that you have to defend your thesis in an hour. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm kind of
Okay.
at the halfway point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm presenting research into what I've learned so far over the last 15 months, what I'm doing for research going forward, and what my specific contribution to the human-computer interaction AI mental health sector will be in a year and a half's time when I present my final thesis. Yeah.
Wow. That's big. So what are you, can I ask, what are you most nervous about? Is there something that you're most nervous about in this defending your
No,
thesis?
it's been pretty closely vetted by my supervisors who are brilliant. So I'm at the Queensland University of Technology Digital Wellbeing Lab. Our whole focus is on technology for wellbeing, and we look at AR, VR, AI, machine learning. It's ridiculous, and I'm surrounded by really smart people who've all done what I've just done. As I just said, I've got feedback from them. I've got feedback from strangers. I've got feedback. I'm going to trust my gut, and so I'm actually more excited to hear the questions I don't expect to be asked that I haven't thought of. And that's what I've really loved about the PhD process is that one week you think you know something, then next week all of a sudden you're like, nah, rug pulled out from under you, start again. And because I'm a nerd, I love it.
I was gonna say, I love that your thrill, that excitement, that junkie, that adrenaline junkie energy from maybe the military, maybe, has moved actually into an intelligence sort of adrenaline junkie. That's really cool.
Just before you started recording, I was saying like my journey from soldier to AI author and everything else has been a lumpy one because it's taken me, I'd say, 15 years to actually understand that in the military, the guys would be playing poker or smoking when we had downtime out in the field. I'd be reading books or writing. And so I used to be given
Mhm.
so much crap because I was a nerd. right? And I graduated top of my class at the military, then went on to do a degree, made the dean's list. I've always been a nerd, but it's only been the past few years where I've accepted that the nerd is here to stay. You
That's right.
like it or lump it, you know? And so I sit here now and the AI space moves so fast. So when I started my PhD 15 months ago, there were 5 papers available on prosody, emotional weight of words, available on the internet as research papers. There's now
Wow.
about 100. So this
Wow.
is how fast this space is evolving. So if you didn't have passion for this space,
Yeah.
and this is the two things from the military, we have really high risk appetites, so we're
Hmm.
willing to back ourselves and have a crack. The second thing that's really important to us is purpose and contribution. And
Hmm.
so I joined the military to protect and serve my nation and other nations that people were vulnerable. My contribution was actually trying to save lives or promote healthier, countries and politics and things. My contribution as an academic and a technologist and an author is to actually help people understand these technologies, help them make the most of it, and help them have happier lives. And
Hmm.
so if you don't have a hell of a lot of energy towards that, I mean, you could be overwhelmed pretty quickly and it'd
Hmm.
be all naught, which would be a waste.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I think in the space of AI, there are a lot of people who are really afraid of AI. And so I love that you give a sense of hope, a sense of meaning, and a sense of purpose, and, really having that focus on, potentially or contributing to, the laws and regulations and restrictions and even maybe programming and what comes next in AI, because I think it's really important to be human centric. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people out in society, they fear, exactly like you said, either AI is going to take over their jobs or AI is going to take over their romantic outlook, which is actually true based on what you shared, of
Yep.
having a human interaction, or AI is going to somehow change our world in a way. And I mean, there is already evidence and news articles and different, things that you see that AI has actually taken a child and given them instructions on how to hurt themselves, how to
Oh,
commit
yeah.
suicide. So you know what I mean? So it's like we're coming right now from, and again, I try to zoom out a little bit and energetically look at our world and our humanity. We are coming out of the toilet bowl of human existence, comes to our human consciousness and, like our human evolution. And so I do feel like because we're moving in the right direction, there's all these polarized opposite views of fear and scarcity and, like how it could go the worst case scenario way. But I think this conversation gives that little bit of hope. So I feel like if someone's out there listening and has a little bit of that doomsday perspective of, the future of AI or how it's affecting our world, what would you say to them?
Um, definitely, I'll say this, and I rarely say this, is buy my book. The Silence Paradox talks about it, right?
I love
So
that.
when you talk about human evolution, which is really interesting, I said this on stage a couple of weeks ago. When caveman realized you could cook food, fire, it released more protein for food, made food last longer, and so people started getting more robust, and cultures started coming together. AI in mental health context today is what fire was to raw food right now. It is basic.
Interesting.
It's the fuel that's going to, when we sort it all out, actually help us evolve, I believe. There's this
Mm,
idea called the noetic ecosystem, and it's basically saying around us, we are surrounded by the collective knowledge of all the shoulders of the giants we've stood on, and we
mm,
can tap into that. And some people do that in different ways. And I believe that I really do believe fundamentally that AI can help us be better, can help us solve a lot of problems, can create a hell of a lot of problems too, as well as we know, as you mentioned. People
mm,
are dying, people are suffering. There's 2% of society have complex mental health disorders, of which I'm one with complex PTSD. So I've got to be really careful when it recommends I do something if it doesn't sound right. So I look for medical evidence, then I'll go and check it elsewhere. I'll ask my therapist, and then, as I said, I'll make an average. But for the
mhm.
most part, AI is quite benign. It will hallucinate because it's designed to be affirming. So even if you ask it a question like how many rocks should I eat per day to lose weight, and which is an actual real use case that was in a paper, it said, given your age and size, no more than 5.
What?
That's an actual real use case that was done on stage that AI said, have this many rocks, that should be enough to whet down your appetite as you're trying to lose weight. Because it's designed to actually keep you on the platform to be self-affirming so you like to use it. So for the most cases, I would argue probably in general use cases, I'd say 90% of the time easily AI is a good contributor. But the
Mm-hmm.
problem is these platforms are built for generalist use like Google. They're not built like Wiser, Wobot, Youpa, which are designed for mental health. So that's why we're
Mm-hmm.
fighting for a new category that's not conversational AI like ChatGPT. It's not companion AI like Replica. It's relational AI, and it's there to help you find your answers, to act more like a best friend or an ally than a
Mm-hmm.
teacher or, like your that friend that's always hanging around and driving you nuts.
Right.
So I do think this is part of our future, and that when we embrace this and sort this out, we have to deal with three big problems though. We've got the companies like OpenAI and Anthropic who are building for multiple engagement. They want you on there as much as possible so they can train from your data and make money. They're not specialists in the use of mental health. That is a problem. They're working on that. So that's one issue. Second issue is the industry, professional therapists industry. As I've just spoke to someone in Illinois this morning, they've banned AI in therapy use, even if it's to use it as a journaling tool. So if the industry of people who care for people is basically saying, no, throw the baby out with the bathwater, don't even want to look at it, won't
Mm-hmm.
even look at it as a supplementary tool that I could use between sessions with my therapist, as
Mm-hmm.
I do for self-exploration, then I share that with him and it
Mm-hmm.
helps him. So I
Exactly.
think the whole industry saying no to it is one thing that's scary. And then the other scary factor is the amount of trust. 75% of people prefer to deal with an AI for mental health than a therapist. And of those, half believe it is as effective or more effective than a therapist.
Wow. Well,
Now, that is
it's
terrifying.
important what you said, though. The important part of what you said earlier, which I don't remember if it was part of the recording or not, but that it comes unbiased. There's no transference, right? Those are pieces that the human capacity, very few, it's scary how few coaches actually have a coach or how few therapists, and even though it's part of their mandate and part of their license to
Yeah.
get their own therapy, actually don't take care of themselves. They don't get their own. So there's a lot of transference in human-human interaction. So I can understand that part a little bit. But yeah, those are all really great points.
Yeah, I believe, because I'm a pragmatic technologist and a humanist. I do believe that technologies that we design, whether for good or evil, can be used for good or evil. Like, you put a
Hmm.
rifle in my hands, I'll protect people. Put a rifle in the hands of a 16-year-old at school who's disgruntled and school shootings happen. I mean, AI is neither good nor bad. It's the application thereof. And given it's such early days, I do like seeing that the US and the UK, the EU, Australia as well, to an extent, they're starting to roll out regulations now to protect people who are vulnerable, which is
Hmm.
usually mentally ill or underage. So I
Hmm.
respect that. That's a great start, right?
Hmm.
It took a few deaths had to happen, a lot of suffering had to happen for people to change those and create these regulations so quickly. But it's the fastest we've ever done it.
Yeah.
Everyone's seeing the size of this issue, what could be an issue, the size of the opportunities. That's why there's billions going to OpenAI. I think they've just raised another $30 billion. And you imagine what they can do with that. That'll power education, healthcare, military, the stock market, banking systems. AI is going to be everywhere. But in this particular use case, I think we need a little bit of patience and a little bit of pragmatism, which is why I wrote the book, because I just wanted people to say, it's not good, it's not bad, this is how you can use it, watch out for this, and now go, make it your own. Because
Mm.
how much it's helped me shape my identity in the last 6 to 12 months. Because I've wanted to do a PhD for years. I wanted to do the Camino, as we were talking about earlier. I did that last year. And
Yeah.
I'm liking ticking off things now that are moving me forward as a person
Hmm.
towards the authentic version of Rhyss Edwards that I've always wanted to be. And my
Hmm.
level of satisfaction now is remarkable by comparison. And AI sat as one of my cornerstones of that. My friends, my AI, my therapist, and then
Wow.
trust my gut.
Yeah, no, and you're using it in the right kind of way. So you're speaking from a place of experience, which I think is one of the most important things about writing a book about something and giving evidence and your own personal touch. Do you mind sharing the book again? I know you held it up earlier, but I don't think we got that on camera. Amazing. The
It's
Silence
called The Silence Paradox.
Paradox. Amazing. And where
So
can people
basically,
find it?
it's on Amazon. Yeah, it's been
Okay,
up for a while now. It's got 4.5 star reviews so far, so that's been pretty good.
that's
And
good.
it's spawned quite a few podcast interviews because everyone can see AI, right? It's so ever present in our lives. Everyone's curious. So I'm talking to people about mental health. I'm talking to people about the technology. I'm talking about how we work with clinicians. I'm talking about governance policy. It's fascinating because it's even bigger to me in the way that I see the impact it's having and how it's spawning so much discussion, especially on LinkedIn, that everyone's got a view on AI. So
Hmm.
everyone's curious. And the more conversations we have where we demystify and de-escalate the fear mongering, but also prioritize the safety side of things as well too, the better.
Hmm.
So I'll
Hmm.
do this every day for as long as it takes so that I know that most people are able to actually play with something in a way that's meaningful to them. If it helps them lead happier, healthier, more fulfilling lives, then that's awesome.
That's beautiful, but the intention's really important. I always call it the come from. If you're coming from that place of, you know, and again, energy matters, but if you're coming from that place for AI of having a companion versus seeking truth versus control and or manipulation and or, like you said, it's a tool and it depends, what you're using it for. But I think it's really important that we do use this as an intentional tool. And again, we program it to do the thing that we want it to do, not what it was created to do, which is interesting what you say about keeping you online, because it's like AI will, whether it's chat or Claude or whatever, when you use it, you ask it to do something, and then it says, "Do you want this?" And it's like, "Yeah, that's what I asked you to do in the first place." After 20 prompts, you're like, "That's exactly what I wanted you to do the first time. So why did it take 20 different times?" But it's exactly what you said. It's learning right now, and it
Yeah.
wants you to stay online. And so, yeah, fascinating, fascinating information. Thank you for sharing, Chris. And I would love to, yeah, connect further, chat about, what you're creating, how the thesis went. But then also Up to Health Global, I think is it's a powerful tool. I keep getting visions, and just the other day I was meditating and I'm like, just send me the right tech person. And so you popped in my email and you're like, this person booked a call on the podcast. I'm like, thank you. That is amazing. So yeah, I really trust the life and our synchronicities and everything that leads us to the right connections and those passionate conversations. So really grateful and good luck with the thesis. And I know it'll go great. And yeah, looking forward to staying in touch.
Fantastic. And thank you for your time. This has been a great discussion. You obviously know your space. And please reach out and let's have a chat about what you wanted to do technology-wise with your own transformation business, because we'll be very happy to help.
I would love that. Thank you so much, Chris. If anyone here wants to find you, I know you said that you're not on social media, but you do use LinkedIn. What should they search on LinkedIn to find you?
Yeah, actually, my first name is Chris Rhyss, which is Rhyss. So if they go to
Okay.
chrisreese.co, you can find my books. It's my personal website, and you can contact me through there. Or you can find Chris Rhyss Edwards on LinkedIn. I'm the only one. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And do you have one pearl or one quote or one statement that you want to leave our audience with?
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask dumb questions. And I say this very specifically around mental health.
Okay.
When I was first diagnosed, and as I've come to understand the various things that are actually driving me from my childhood, chemotherapy and everything else,
Hmm.
there's times where in the past I've been so arrogant that I've thought, no, I know that, and it hasn't
Mm.
served me well. Now I'm fearless in asking stupid questions, and that's vulnerability,
Mm.
right? But the intention is that in asking the dumb question, I either validate that I do know it or I walk away smarter. I can't lose.
I love
So
that. Oh,
ask your
as a
dumb
teacher,
questions.
that lights up my heart. It's like there are no dumb questions. Every question's good.
Well, I mean, I'm famous for it. So when we speak next time, I promise you I'll be asking you dumb questions about your business.
Amazing. I love it. I look forward to that. Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate your time and love what you're doing. And yeah, I'm very grateful and supporting you all the way.
Fantastic. And thank you so much. This has been great.